Hey everyone, very good morning to you all. Charles here, Frgnt Daily Chart Analysis. Monday the 27th July 2027, 2026 in fact. We're wishing the year away, and it's 7 minutes past 7 local time here in Milan. I hope you're all doing very well indeed. So I've just finished doing a live call with Frgnt Mastery. Very good one, isolating those pairs that we like. As you can see, my watch list, DXY, GU, AU, EU, GCAD, UCAD, and US dollar 30 most certainly deserves a green today. So we're definitely in the markets for potential positions as a result of the gap that's being created because of the DXY moving. I hope that's still available. Cool. So moving price towards the downside, which in turn I'm now looking for potential DXY strength to step into the market, perhaps coming from that 4-hour order block if I'm incorrect about the range. But the caveat to that, of course, is we do have that daily order block supporting price towards the downside. So we can definitely see why we would be looking at DXY weakness coming from those highs. But certainly so, as I've said many times over, if I'm incorrect, I always have a couple of plans in place. If I'm incorrect about the range, and of course, if I'm correct about the range, of course, what I'll look to see is price moving towards the lows of that range. However, if I'm incorrect about the range, and the range is most certainly over as a result of price action on a 4-hour time frame, making those higher highs and higher lows, bring into play the fact we've now got a 4-hour order block supporting price towards the upside, as well as that we have the 4-hour 50 MA. Then, of course, when I refine those areas down, I'm looking at the 15-minute time frame now, top left-hand chart. I can certainly foresee DXY strength to come out of the market toward or from these lows, which in turn, of course, is going to push the US dollar towards the upside. And then my cross pairs in terms of GU, AU, and EU will be looking for potential shorts in the market, US dollar CAD potential longs in the market, and then GCAD in correlation to UCAD. If GCAD, or rather so, if UCAD moves to the highs, then I can anticipate GCAD moving to the lows. And then with that said, US 30 is moving in the inverse direction of the DXY. So if DXY looks to push towards the upside, what can I have a look at anticipating on US 30 without being a potential move towards the downside? So you can see a tremendous amount of illustrations, details, and depths that we go through rather on Frgnt Mastery. However, with that said, you're more than free to take a look at my illustrations. If you can work them out, then congratulations. If not, then of course you know where to go. So DXY, we've spoken about DXY. Quick run through of my watch list today. As I mentioned, if I'm anticipating DXY strength to come out of the market, then of course I'm looking for potential GU to move towards the downside. Can I see some areas on the chart where I can anticipate GU to move to the downside? I absolutely can. Had a daily closure below an area in the market where price was failing to break below before. That's now created the first low in the market. And of course, after a low, what am I anticipating? A lower high for a lower low continuation. When I start to refine all those areas down, you can see exactly why and where I am looking to see that rejection coming from. So it's all based on whether the DXY is going to reject that area and then move towards the upside. So we'll be using the DXY as well as that US 30 as a full degree of confluence to come to my decision whether or not it is a good time to execute. With that said, much of the same on AU. I could be incorrect about this range. However, if I am correct about the range, then I would be looking to short the range from the absolute highs down to the lows of the range. However, being incorrect about the range, all that's suggesting me is I can still potentially look to take a short position. However, my management criteria needs to be a little bit more refined as a result of no longer anticipating price to move towards the lows of the range. Perhaps the 4-hour 50 EMA can now be relied upon. And then if we have a look at that 4-hour 50 EMA, we can see that prices most recently closed above it and moving towards the upside. With that said, I believe the daily time frame is definitely indicating that price is very much so still in that range. So what I'll be looking to do is isolate AU towards the highs of that range, look for my entry criteria, and then take a potential short position on AU towards the downside, based again on that DXY strength that I'm anticipating to come out of the market. Much of that said is the same pretty much on EU. As I mentioned to those that listen in the morning, I was quite tempted to take a short position already this morning on EU, but I did not. I was just going to wait for London to open first thing Monday morning. But what we can see is if we refine this very large order block down, we can then see how we're getting 2 wick rejections from that area in the 4-hour time frame rejection, that 4-hour 50 MA, and more importantly, we're rejecting that 4-hour order block. However, with that said, I have stretched this 4-hour order block to make it make sense. What I should be doing, and what I do all the time, is I'll be looking to take the highest order block in an area and then refine that area down. So if I look at stretching that order block, of course I'm now into the realms of taking a higher time frame directional position short from both order blocks. If I use that order block correctly on the 4-hour time frame, you can see how now I'm only into the realms of using 15-minute time frame only. So when I'm using a 15-minute time frame only, you can see exactly the type of information I need to see before executing a short position. That would be a break of most immediate structures that are supporting price towards the upside. Break that pullback, look for a short once I find my entry criteria. With that said, up at these highs I can be slightly more aggressive, because then I am taking a position from a refined area based on my higher time frame directional play. With that said, EU, do I believe EU is in a range? Let me just double check what I had on the weekly time frame. So the weekly time frame, I think, gives a nice solid clue about what I think regarding the range on EU. Last week's weekly candle closed below that range, so therefore I believe we're in the realms of actually making a lower low, lower high type of formation. So therefore I'm quite happy to rely upon that 4-hour time frame in terms of the 4-hour printing, also that lower low, lower high type of formation. So with that said, I always have those two trails of thought. As I've mentioned previously, if I'm correct or incorrect about my thought process, notwithstanding that these are just pretty illustrations on the chart, the price has no right necessarily to reject my illustrations. It's just a strategy that I'm going to continue to apply in the market, as I have done for close to a decade now. And just executing in line with that. So it's working thus far, so therefore I'll continue to use that strategy until it runs out of percentage return, which I hope doesn't come anytime soon. So with that said, you can see 2 15-minute order blocks. I've already made the decision of how I need to approach both of those order blocks based on 15-minute only, and of course based on higher time frame directional bias. With that said, just have a nice look at that daily 50 MA where price is rejecting towards the downside beautifully. However, in addition to that, that daily 50 MA is right there up at these highs. So with that said, if I'm incorrect about my lower time frame types of positions, and then price then reverts simply back into the range, then up at those highs coming from the highs of the range, and I do see a lovely short opportunity coming from there already prepared. So I'm in the market for a lot this week. I just need to see what plays out, what type of entry criteria and setup presents itself, and of course I'll be looking to act accordingly. GCAD, I was umming and ahhing with GCAD this morning. Do I prefer GCAD longs or do I look at GCAD shorts? Now, based on my interpretation of the DXY and understanding that DXY could reject to the downside to, or reject from the downside towards the upside, that would mean for UCAD pushing to those highs as well. With that said, UCAD and GCAD are negative correlations, so I cannot be looking to take GCAD and UCAD both in the short direction. I will be stopped out more than likely on GCAD if I'd be more than likely to be stopped out of a UCAD short if the DXY is going to move towards the high. So what I'm going to do is place my trust in my analysis on the DXY, with the understanding that the DXY, of course, is going to look to reject those lows and move towards the highs. Therefore, I believe GCAD has every opportunity to move back down towards those lows, despite price action looking quite nice on the higher time frames and refinement of the lower time frames, particularly coming out of that refined weekly order block, daily refined into the 4, rejected the 4, move off towards the highs, and of course we have the respect of the daily 50 MA from the lows, keeping price towards the upside. With that said, based on 15-minute time frame only, I'd certainly be in the market to anticipate a short move from this 15-minute order block. You can see my alert is very much so up there, and my entry criteria is ready and pretty much set, just waiting for that to develop before looking to take a short position. US dollar CAD, as we've said, if I'm anticipating DXY strength coming from the market, does it look like an equidistance away from UCAD as it does with the DXY in terms of looking for rejection from those areas? And I say so indeed. So once DXY comes down to this area, my alert goes off. I'll be looking for my confirmation on the DXY before then looking to take, let's say, a potential long position on US dollar CAD from potential session lows. Of course, if that area isn't held up, I see a much better area on US dollar CAD where I could look for a long position based on higher time frame directional bias. We've got the daily 50 MA supported to the upside by way of daily order block that we've had a nice rejection from. What I like about this as well is price is still yet to re-tap into that daily order block up at those highs. So as opposed to looking at this as a lower low, lower high for a low continuation as a result of price not actually pushing up yet into that daily order block, I still believe we have every reason to pull back and create our own internal structure before reaching to those highs. So what we have now is a high, potential higher low for that higher high continuation. And then what that would be overall is low, lower low, low, lower high for that lower low for on US dollar CAD. So that's my mindset at the moment. Of course, US dollar CAD is coming short out of those higher time frame weekly order blocks as well. So it looks very nice for continued shorts longer term. But in the immediacy, I'll be looking at price potentially to move up towards those highs from either potential session lows or that higher time frame directional refined area. And then finally, US dollar 30, really liking it at the moment, trending nicely. US dollar 30, of course, that is the inverse of the DXY. So if the DXY is looking to move towards the highs, then US dollar 30 has every opportunity to move towards the lows. Look at 4-hour price action trending beautifully towards the downside. Still yet to retest that daily 50 MA where price is, must admit, respecting towards the upside. So of course I'm looking for price to reject that daily 50 MA to the downside, potentially tap into that daily daily order block to the downside, tap into the daily 50 MA towards the upside before making its continued move to the highs. However, with that said, until I get a daily candle closure above that daily order block that was created by way of bearish engulfing that wiped out price action to the left, I need to see a daily candle close above that area for me then to disregard my sell bias on US 30. As you can see, the alignment across the lower time frames look very nice indeed as well. The only caveat to that, of course, is we have most recently closed above that 4-hour 50 MA. So if I am looking at taking a short position, I need to I need to ensure that my range back down to the 4-hour 50 MA where I'm expecting rejection towards the upside, I have enough range. So therefore I've got a couple of areas in the market where I'll be happy to take US 30 short on the basis that I have enough range to get to break even before that 4-hour 50 EMA and the anticipation of rejection towards the upside. So team, that is the quickest breakdown of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trading instruments, particularly the DXY, so we'll call it the 6. So we're using the DXY as confidence only. I'm not trading the DXY at the moment. So 6 pairs, 15 minutes, and then I'll wish you all a very, very solid trading day. And I hope the breakdowns and the daily chart analysis is still being of hand to you all. And I appreciate the support across the channels. It doesn't go unnoticed, and I love the questions as well that get fired my way. So all the very best in your trading journey. Take care trading today, and you'll hear from me soon. All the best. Charles.